Good morning and welcome to day two. I hope you all had a good evening and that our partners and team looked after you well. I'm Heather Emslie. I'm the Global Sales Director for Google Workspace, and I've had the pleasure of hosting today's session on the new era of work with Duet AI and Google Workspace. This session should give you more insights on Duet AI, the use cases, and how our customers are using it to improve their internal processes and the products they provide their customers. We'll start with a brief intro into Gen AI and why it matters. We'll then spend about 20 minutes hearing from our panelists on how they're using Generative AI and Google Workspace to improve their businesses. Lastly, we'll hand it over to you, the audience, for 15 minutes for some Q&A. So please get those questions ready. I trust you'll gain a lot of valuable insights from today's session. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce our panelists today. I want to start off with Zohar, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Sure thing, thank you. I'm Zohar Yardeni. I'm the Chief Product Officer of the Knot Worldwide, and we are a large wedding company. So we help couples plan their wedding across the world, over 16 countries. And we do this by connecting couples to wedding professionals and providing a bunch of tools.
Great, thank you very much, Zohar. Next, I'd like Sean Baker to introduce himself.
Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Sean Baker. I'm the Chief Technology and Senior Information Security Officer for the Uniformed Services University of the Health Sciences, which most of you have probably never heard of. It's the U.S. Department of Defense's own medical school. Our graduates go off to serve in the armed forces for the United States and take care of our service members and their families throughout their careers.
Great, thank you very much, Sean. Last but not least, Ranjan Roy.
Yep, I'm Ranjan Roy. I'm the VP of Strategy at Adore.me. We're a direct-to-consumer intimate apparel company based in New York, founded in 2011, and been a long-time Google Workspace customer.
Great, thanks very much, Ranjan, and I hope your voice will cope a little bit short if you need water. So, without further ado, let's maybe get started a little bit more. So, you might be asking why generative AI is important, and even AI in general. We believe that generative AI and AI as a technology is one of those transformative technologies similar to other transformations we've seen in our history. Sorry, just let me get the right slide for you. So it's technology similar to when we saw steam power, electricity, and information technology. We firmly believe that it's going to change the way that we work and live on a day-to-day basis. AI has been at the center of Google's innovation for the past decade, and we will continue to invest in this space to allow our customers to focus their employees on high-value tasks. By automating business processes and assisting with highly complex or time-consuming, sometimes difficult tasks to make individuals more productive. The mere fact of increasing productivity has a direct impact on the bottom line and can result in more revenue from an organization. While this might sound very high level for you, what I've found is that when we start talking about these technologies, we need to start with you as the customer and understand a bit more about your business processes and where we can help you be more productive. Whether it's in a call center, understanding, is there a way we can help a call center agent take on more calls and respond to an email in a better way, or providing a sales rep with an easier way to proofread proposals and not spend so much time on grammatical errors, but more focus on the content. When we start talking about Duet AI, my own journey started about 18 months ago when I first started learning about how this technology can really help me be more productive. I'll admit, in the beginning, it was a bit of a habit-forming area where I had to start using the functions as opposed to ignoring them. But once I started, I quickly learned that there was huge time saving for me as a person by recording meeting minutes and action items without having to actually physically do the typing myself, as well as editing and reviewing documents. I've really seen some time savings around that. Similar to my experiences, we have over the past months been collaborating with our customers and users to develop and test various features in this space to help improve productivity. Some of these areas include helping you write and build sharper and more useful documents, helping you organize and act on data, helping you visualize with artistic vision from a simple prompt, helping you connect through better calls and enhanced video, audio, and custom backgrounds. And even, and this is my personal favorite, creating business applications using simple language with the likes of AppSheet. You may be asking about how we adhere to our AI principles. Duet was built in strict adherence to the Google's principle for responsible AI. And through our Workspace Labs initiative, we tested Duet AI features extensively with hundreds of thousands of users who leverage these tools to help them get things done. We are here today to hear from some of these customers about their journey and what they've learned through that process. So without further ado, it's now time to hear from our panelists. Gentlemen, I've had feedback from many customers. They're unsure of where to start and what use cases apply the most. I'd like to ask all of you to share what was your aha moments and how did you see the business impact for this? I'd like to start with Ranjan on this one.
Yep. So for me, that timeline you showed earlier is very interesting. So 2015 to 2017, I actually ran a startup focused on news personalization, and summarization is something we worked on actively, and it was terrible. And then fast forward to 2021, starting to play with the transformer models that came out, realizing it was there. It was amazing. And for me, it really was an exciting moment because I realized this can change everything, especially as someone who focuses on content, marketing, branding. So the way we started rolling this out in the company is with smaller task forces, and this is before getting access to Duet AI, and really starting with what's the worst part of your job. So for example, a copywriter on our team, we launch 80 to 100 new products a month. They have to write 100 product descriptions every month and try to act original and cool and fun for every single description. And it's soul-sucking, and it's terrible. And we literally start with, this is the worst part of your job. So if we can augment that for you, if we can automate that for you, it's such a better way to have this technology received by your teams. But for me, the very cool part about Duet AI is we already live in Google Workspace products. Slide decks, docs, sheets, that's where we are already. So what started first is kind of like small little task forces and groups within marketing, within engineering. Now we are able to roll out generative AI to the entire company where people already are. So having help me write directly in your doc, rather than having to go out to some external tool, knowing it's secure, knowing it's going to be starting to learn how to prompt as well. These are things that now the entire company is able to learn.
I love that. When we engage with customers on their workspace journey, we always talk about the change management element on what's in it for me. And I like that part is what sucks most about your job and how could we automate it? I think that's really powerful. Zohar, how about the knot? What are some of your experiences?
Well, so similar kind of background, but maybe to take it to a more personal level. I've also been working kind of as a product person in and around AI, ML, working with data science for a long time. And I kind of thought I knew what was going on. And when these models first came out about a year ago, I was really blown away, right? I just kind of thought of them as these sequential, guess the next best word types of things, and just seeing that somewhat simplistic technology get to this point where it can do all these amazing things, like pass the bar exam or whatever, like really blew my mind. For me, the personal aha moment, it actually came outside of a work context. So I was doing homework with my daughter, and her assignment was to come up with an alternate ending to Waiting for Godot, which is this like absurdist play that kind of is open-ended. And we talked about it probably for about a half hour and came up with a bunch of ideas. And then in 30 seconds, putting that same question into like an LLM, it just kind of just blew our minds that it was pretty darn good, right? It kind of came up with a lot of good ideas and some better than what we could come up with. And for me, that really, again, as someone who thought that they knew what was going on in the space, really kind of opened me up to just really thinking about, okay, wait, I'm thinking about this too narrowly in my day job. I need to just like really open it up and think, where does this really fit in our product and kind of how we think about internal efficiency. And so just on a personal aha moment level, that's really for me the moment.
Great, thank you. Sean, slightly, not necessarily in the consumer business, but more in the medical faculty. What was your aha moment?
So, like the gentleman, we've been dabbling in AI for quite a while now, actually in partnership with great companies like Google who have worked with us along the way. But those were all developing clinical decision support tools or diagnostic aids for physicians. They focused on an individual diagnosis, a particular disease problem. They weren't generalized. They weren't something that everyone could use in their everyday. And so it was for us and for our leadership when we showed them that they could use these capabilities in a general manner in the workspace that they were already in, that they started to really embrace the opportunities. And so during the trusted tester period, we deliberately federated this out into a lot of different use cases in the organization, sort of broadening that aperture, as Zohar was saying, because we weren't sure what everyone was going to succeed with. Were the students going to want to use it for personalized tutoring on a topic they were struggling with? Did the deans want to write policies on academic integrity around generative AI, maybe? And what other use cases could we find where we could capitalize on this in order to not so much displace people or work, but make them more efficient? We work in government, and in government, we are so often behind in our work. We are resource constrained, and so if we can make people more efficient, they feel less overwhelmed, they're more empowered to really produce for the government and for the people.
Great, thank you very much. We kind of touched on it, and when I started off the questions, I said customers are often struggling with use cases or where to start. Can you maybe share, and we'll start with you, Sean, what are some of those use cases? I know you shared some now, but how did you go about identifying them, and what were some of the use cases that are really helping your business right now, or
For us,
the university?
Yeah, sorry. For us, it was key that it be organic with our users, right? And Ranjan was talking about this, where you had to find something which is passionate to them. But we have a lot of different use cases within our organization, right? You've got research going on, education, administration, people who are buying things, managing the finances, et cetera. And so we wanted to put it in their hands and let them tell us what their use cases for all of this were. Before it was announced yesterday, we didn't have early access to this. We had folks who were taking transcripts that were generated by other online video platforms and using Duet AI now to summarize the meeting notes and getting those out to staff more quickly than they could have possibly manually. We have folks who are writing their own policies internally. I'm notorious for getting stuck at the blank page when I need to formulate a new policy for the team, but I can edit it all day long. So even if the AI doesn't understand all the nuances of DoD regulation yet, I can just have it write the baseline, and I'll fill in the details. I'll make the corrections later.
So this is not one of our agreed questions, so you can tell me. But was there anything specific around the generations? Did you see, like when you gave it out to the departments, I'm assuming you've got different ages. I was reading an article yesterday that said Gen Zs are more likely to adopt AI. Is that true in your experience, or did you see something different?
Statistically, if we looked at it, there probably was a bit of a difference. In our experience, it had more to do with the personality of the individual, right? And we're dealing with a small sample size. There were only so many seats that we could give out, et cetera. But we saw a lot of innovation at all ages of our employees. In fact, it was a digital immigrant who was telling me that one time when they were just getting absolutely frustrated with manually editing a policy, they decided to ask Duet to just translate it into a Dr. Seuss rhyme for them, at which point it relieved the tension, and then everyone kind of got off of, not the blank page, but got off of the frustration of it, and were able to regroup and actually complete the document.
Awesome, thanks. I'm really glad to see this is not a generational and only a Gen Z kind of technology. So anyone can adopt it in the org. Ranjan, how about your organization? What are some of the things you're seeing from Adore.me in terms of use cases? You did touch on product descriptions and things, but what else?
Yeah, the way we kind of break everything down is there are things that save time. So product descriptions, again, in the past 30 to 40 hours a month, now down to 1 hour. But then there's entire new use cases that you could never have done before. So we're working on kind of like notes from a stylist that would be auto-generated based on customer data, based on things that you had looked on at the past, things that you like this color, you like this, you have a special occasion coming, and being able to generate a personalized note for every customer, for every product. So these are the really exciting things that never would have been possible with just regular copywriters without AI. So we're really trying to break things into those two categories and think about where are you going to save time and what can you create that you never could have before.
Fantastic, thank you. When we spoke earlier, Zohar, you spoke about also looking internal and how you're going to change products for your customers. Would you mind sharing some of those use cases?
Yeah, so maybe focusing on the internal stuff for us, I mentioned before the coding companion stuff, like that's a huge piece. So my team is the team that builds our apps, our services, and so even if you don't code, check out videos on YouTube, but it really is an amazing technology for people who build software. It's like having a junior developer sitting next to you and doing all the stuff you don't want to do, and you can focus on the fun stuff. So that's been a huge focus for us, getting good at that, getting fast at that, rolling that out across the org. A piece of that isn't just coding software, it's really the data analytics and insights, so writing SQL or just like querying data. And then we have a bunch of use cases that I would say are sort of like generative, people who work in our organization who create stuff. So yes, it is customer service like we're talking about, but it's also editorial content, marketing content. It's obviously a huge help there. And then like for me, I've really just been blown away by just the day-to-day kind of stuff that like the example I was using before that inspired me, but getting this into people's hands when they're thinking of meeting agendas or summarizing notes or rewriting documentation. And this is where I really like kind of where Google fits into the space. We're also very heavy users of the entire suite. And so having it right there and integrated is great because for us, we think one of the big challenges is just getting adoption and just getting people excited to use this thing because we already all have our day, we have our cockpit, we have ways of doing things, and we're going to introduce this new thing. If you think about, for folks who maybe are my age, like pre-Google search times, like we all have spent a decade or more getting really good at searching, and we're not really good at that. And there's maybe like a Gen AI equivalent, and we're at the earlier stages of that ramp up, and it's great to have Google integrated in there because it makes it easier for those day-to-day use cases.
Great, thank you very much, Zohar. So if we change gears a little bit and maybe think about the short and the long-term perspective of your org, how are your organizations thinking about your artificial intelligence and generative AI strategy in terms of like short and long term? Ranjan, if we can start with you.
Yeah, so in the short term, one of the things that we've seen that's one of the most exciting parts for me is, so we have offices, we're based in New York, also in Paris and Bucharest. Our main technology department is out of Bucharest, our CTO is Romanian, we were distributed essentially since our founding. is now people communicate so much more from the tech side. The ideas that they have, now they're able to express themselves on LinkedIn, internally. So the amount of content being created and knowledge being shared out of our technology department, we've already seen rise on almost exponentially. And to me, that idea of like leveling the playing field with sharing knowledge, with people being able to express themselves, means so much for the future of our organization. Even in terms of the demos that they showed yesterday, one thing I'm very excited about is we live in slides. We were founded by ex-McKinsey folks. I don't love slides per se, but that's everything is a deck. And so we have to be able to create them. And some people, especially ex-consultants, are kind of trained to make decks perfectly and instantly and think like that. Already seeing that being able to reuse templates, import knowledge from docs and sheets into a deck and have it generate that for you, it puts everyone on the same playing field for how they communicate about business and strategy. So to me, that's one of the most exciting things.
Great, thank you very much. Zohar, what about the knot?
So I think maybe about 6 months ago, every company in the world was asked by their board or someone, Gen AI is happening. What are you doing about it? What's your strategy? What's your approach? So we've thought a lot about this, and we sort of divided the problem up. And this is not an expert perspective, right? We're not like a Gen AI company. This is us as a regular company thinking, what does this mean for us? We divided things into 3 buckets. We kind of said, what does this mean for the products that we build and how we serve our customer? How should this change our strategy, looking a little bit more steady state, like when this stuff is more fully adopted? And then internally, what does it mean for efficiency? And so for us on the product side, again, being a wedding company and really a two-sided marketplace, there are a bunch of obvious places we started looking. Conversational interfaces make a lot of sense for us. People typically only use us once for their wedding, and they don't want to get good at this stuff. They just kind of want to plan their wedding. And so learning a complex UI, they just don't have a lot of attention span for that, so conversation makes sense. We also try to string together a lot of unstructured data, content, articles, and some structured data. So these LLMs are really good for that. We also have generative kind of content building, people writing invitations to their guests or different content, communicating with vendors, where this can be helpful. So we kind of put a bunch of stuff in this product bucket. Then as we thought about the strategy, we really tried to kind of pre-mortem the future and think in a few years when this is something we're all using, and like I said before, we're kind of better at, what does that mean for us? And the TLDR there is something like we think unique content, unique inventory, unique transactions, those things that make you special as a company are probably going to be more important, and some of the top of funnel discovery UI innovation might become less important as the interfaces become smarter and smarter in a sense. So we spent some time thinking strategically, should we be rejiggering things as we think about the future? And then internally, we've touched on a lot of it, but it's really looking at all those use cases. How do we get customer service more efficient? How do we think about the generative stuff that we're doing? Again, coding, software development is a huge piece of that. Data analytics is a huge piece of that. And that's probably where we're, and a lot of companies are kind of farthest ahead.
Great, thank you very much. Sean.
Yeah, so I'm actually going to kind of steal from both gentlemen here in terms of our near-term plans on this, right? So immediately, we want to recapitalize on what generative AI can do to take the most painful parts of people's days out of it, or at least the most repetitious, time-costly things which they do in their work, so that we can be more effective with that. But then I also very much empathize with, I agree with Zohar's observation about this kind of being like early days of search, right? And learning how to search and parentheses and ands and ors and all of that weird stuff that we all used to have to do if you wanted to find a very specific result on the internet. And herein, it's about teaching the next generation of medical providers how to interact with generative AI. Because 10 years from now, the semantics are absolutely going to be different, but the capabilities and knowing what the platforms, what the tools are capable of is absolutely going to be critical if we want to be delivering modern medicine, modern digital medicine to America's service members and their families. And that's what we're focused on there. More broadly, and I'm a nerd, I'm going to call myself out, I'm going to show it all to you. I think about J.J. Abrams' Star Trek movie, And I think about Spock as he's learning, God only knows what, quantum mechanics or something in that little AI-driven cubicle that he's learning in. And I think, where does that capability fit in the future of education, in the future of medical education? And how long will it be until you have that personal tutor that takes the physician away from teaching didactic materials and allows them to focus on teaching clinical skills with a human being, allows them to mentor the student rather than just continuing to repeat the same thing that they found in a textbook?
Great. I think what was interesting that both Sean and Zohar mentioned, it's actually forced the organizations to start thinking about the future and what their differentiators are going to be as certain functions start becoming very commoditized. So it's something we should all be thinking about in our org. We've spoken a lot about the benefits. What about the risks? Are there any things that you're seeing in your organization when you started proposing or discussing this from a board perspective that were concerns from a risk perspective? Sean, maybe we'll start with you.
Yeah, so obviously I'm the one up here who works in the government, and the government starts with a no on anything that involves risk from an IT perspective, right? And I'm the CISO, I know that better than most. But we had to look at it from a risk management framework, which is the way that the US government approaches this. And the key is it's the risk management framework, it's not the risk avoidance framework. So we have to balance what is the risk of employing a new technology that we don't fully understand yet versus the risk of not adopting this technology and being part of the solution here. And when we found out that the way Google has implemented this, and again, as a public servant, I have to say this is not an endorsement of Google, but when we found out that Google was using the same common infrastructure, the same privacy protections, which we relied on for everything else we do on Workspace, and we could say this is just another AI-driven feature, just another, right? AI-driven feature in the Workspace platform, the same as spam filtration decisions, meet transcripts, et cetera. Well, then from a compliance standpoint, it became very easy to say yes, and vice that risk of not doing anything became a resounding yes.
Great, thank you. Ranjan?
Yeah, for us, I like that point Sean made. What's the risk of not doing something versus the risk of actually pursuing this? And for us, we kind of made the decision and understanding that people are going to start using this technology. And the best way to actually encourage it is to already use it in a secure way, in a trusted way where they already are. And that's why Duet AI is so interesting to us, because it's where they already are, it's in their docs, it's in slides, and we are longtime Google Cloud customers, Workspace customers, and just that feeling of security and trust across the organization with our CTO. You don't have to sell him on getting people to use this. He already has a decade of trust built into here. So for us, people are going to use this technology anyway, so it might as well be in a trusted way.
Yeah, I like that. And I think that's an important concept for many customers out there is people will use it anyway, so let's provide the tools internally versus allowing to go out there in tools that you don't manage. Zohar, what about when you went to the board and had this discussion?
Well, not much to add on that stuff. I would say keep your general counsel, your BFF, like everything went by legal with us, and it was super helpful. Product counsel, also shout out there. But really, I think initially it felt very Wild West and kind of scary, and I know a lot of companies, discussions we were having with like sister companies and stuff, developers, for example, were just going out there and using the consumer tools as opposed to like going through the enterprise, just because as developers, we all want to be faster and play with the shiny stuff. But these days, I feel like the platforms are really catching up, and my personal belief is, pretty soon, however you need it locked down, you'll be able to get that locked down that way. So we hope that that was kind of a temporary status, just like other technologies like communication frameworks and things like that, and that we get to a place where really the level of security is there if you need it.
Thank you very much. I hope you got what you wanted out of this session. Looking forward to the rest of the day with you. Thank you. Have a great day.